Empower Radio presents The Miracle of Healing with Lisa Campion. Meet healers, learn different modalities, and hear empowering stories of people on their healing journey. The Miracle of Healing on Empower Radio. Here's your host, Lisa Campion.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Campion, and this is The Miracle of Healing on Empower Radio, where conscious people come together to explore the world of healing and heal the planet one person at a time. My guest today is Ashley Haseotes, who is the founder of One Mission organization. One Mission is a pediatric cancer charity that does whatever it takes to get kids and their family through cancer. One Mission's programs make living in the hospital less lonely and stressful. They bring back joy in a time of fear and uncertainty and give the kids and their loved ones the support they need to get through the emotional and financial challenges of cancer treatment. Ashley founded One Mission after her own son was diagnosed with cancer as a baby. Thankfully, her son is a survivor, but the experience of being in the hospital for a long period of time with him made Ashley see the need to support families of kids who are in cancer treatment and living in the hospital. She has a story that will totally inspire you. And I'm telling you, bring your hankies for this one, folks. I noticed that when something really bad happens in a family, like a serious life-threatening illness, even when one where the child recovers, it changes the family forever. A brush with death changes everything. Death is one of the greatest transformers that we ever encounter in life. It puts us right through the eye of the needle, and we are not the same when we come out the other side. Some families sink into loss and despair and have trouble processing the experience, which is totally understandable. Having something go wrong with one of your kids is the biggest heartbreaking challenge we can ever face as a family. And I noticed the families who heal the best from these kinds of situations are ones where they take the energy of the trauma and they turn it into something good. They sponsor road races and raise money and awareness. They start foundations, they build playgrounds, or they find ways to support other families who are going through the same thing. Trauma, tragedy, and loss become a springboard for making the world a better place. And this is exactly what Ashley has done with One Mission. Her story will inspire you and bring you hope that there really are people out there making the world a better place. So let's get right to it and welcome Ashley.
Hello. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Your story just constantly inspires me. And I'm like so happy to, I've been at one of your One Mission events, which I can't wait to talk about. But why don't you tell us what's happened to you that you started One Mission?
Yeah, totally. So it actually starts before my son Nicholas got sick. And when the decision to have kids and stop working kind of came up, my husband said, "Hey, I really want you to stay home." So I had Nicholas, and he was like 3 months old. And I was kind of done with the whole peeps and poops thing. It just wasn't doing it for me. I had been in sales for a long time before that. And I said, "Hey, listen, I really want to go back to work." And he said, "Yeah, like we talked about this. I really don't want you to go back." And I said, I really want to do something. He said, "Well, why don't you get into philanthropy?" And I said, "What's philanthropy?" I mean, I was 30 years old. I said, "What's philanthropy?" He said, "Just help people who are less fortunate." So the next day I researched helping kids because I had kids. So I figured, okay, let's make it a kid thing. And I came across St. Jude. And I called them up and I said, "Hey, listen, I want to have a fundraiser for you. How do I do it?" It was so long ago that they sent me a VHS tape in the mail. But anyway, so I had this party. So there was probably 30 or 40 of my closest friends came to my house. We were all really young. Some of us didn't even have kids yet, but most of us had one child, and they were mostly 1 year or younger in age. And so we had this party. Everybody was having cocktails. We were watching this video that St. Jude sent us about these really sick kids. And, we're all crying. Can you imagine how awful that would be to have one of our kids get sick? And then 2 months later, Nicholas got diagnosed with cancer. So before we figured out what was wrong with him, I knew in my gut something was wrong with him. And I had done all this research on St. Jude. And I told my husband, "I think Nicholas has cancer." And he, of course, flew off the handle. And he said, "You're a first-time mom. You're totally freaking out. Like, you're out of your mind. Our kid doesn't have cancer." And I said, "I know for a fact that he is sick." The next morning, we woke up. he had gotten 100% worse. We scooped him up, brought him to the emergency room. Fast forward a couple of hours, we found out that Nicholas had cancer. So when we were in the hospital room, Ari, my husband, was in the bed with Nicholas, and Nicholas was an infant. He was 7 months old, so he was on Ari's chest. And it's bad when your attending physician comes in with tears in her eyes. So she said, I have bad news. Nicholas's blood work came back, and his white blood cells are 60,000. And I said, well, what are they supposed to be? She said, somewhere between 7 and 10,000. And I said, so he has cancer. And she said, yeah, I'm pretty sure he does. We're going to get an ambulance. They need to bring you to Children's. And she left. And I turned around to my husband, and I put my hand on his hand that was on Nicholas's back, and my husband was hysterical. And I said, I don't know how I know this, but Nicholas is going to be fine, and this is only going to make our family stronger. And he said, how do you know? And I said, because I knew yesterday that he had cancer, and I just know today that he's going to be okay, and that this is going to be something good's going to come out of this. And I definitely lost my way a couple of times throughout Nicholas being sick and in the hospital. I had a lot of pity parties. I was super scared. And I think I even lost the track of the fact that I even said that in the emergency room. But it happened, after he got home and we got our feet on the ground and all sorts of crazy things happened in between. I ended up starting One Mission.
Wow. And that's an incredible story. And how long was Nicholas in the hospital?
So we lived in the hospital for 188 straight days. So it's 6 months. We never got to come home. The kind of treatment, he had AML, which is the more rare form of leukemia. So he was an infant, so when kids get cancer, it's rare. And then when infants get cancer, it's extra rare. And then the genetic makeup of his cancer was only seen in 55-year-old women, and they all died from it. So they gave us a 50-50 shot he'd make it 6 months.
Wow.
And then they sent us home in 6 months. And, I love that your show's about miracles, because I truly believe Nicholas is a miracle. I mean, I know that you also think the same way that I do, but I believe that, before we're brought into our physical bodies, that we are a spirit, and that we kind of get the quick commercial, like, okay, you can choose this life, and this is all the crazy stuff that's going to happen, but this is all the good stuff that's going to happen too, and these are all the people that are going to benefit from your life, and etc. I believe that Nicholas chose me and Ari as his parents, not only for One Mission and the greater good, but because I believe that I was how Nicholas got cured. Because when we were in the hospital with him, we went through all sorts of, treatment, and he had a very rare case. So we were trying all sorts of experimental things. And again, we came back to St. Jude because I'd done so much research on them. And what we ended up doing is finishing our treatment at Boston Children's, flying to Tennessee, and being the number 6 patient in a very experimental protocol called the natural killer transplant. And I happened to be Nicholas's match. So they took out my natural killer cells, gave them to Nicholas with the intent that if he had any remaining cancer in his body, that my natural killer cells would find it as foreign and kill it. So I think that, the whole kind of the world the universe was working for the greater good on that, and not only just to save Nicholas. I think that Nicholas knew. He said, yes, I'll do this. I'll be in this body. I'll endure this pain and suffering, and I want these two to be my parents. So that's my story in a
wow.
soapbox.
Oh my God, it's such an intense story. And what was it like living in the hospital with him for 6 months?
It was pretty bad. I mean, I have 10 years off of that now, so I can look backwards with some separation without reliving the trauma. But it was very traumatic. I mean, the kind of treatment that they gave him was very, very intense, which is why they never let you go home, because literally I saw Nicholas code 3 times. He stopped breathing on a table in front of me, and I had to call code because the doctors weren't calling it, and because they were young students. But And so he got, he pretty much slept 20 out of the 24 hours a day. That's how sick he was.
Wow.
And it was either me or my husband holding him. In the rare moment that we went, across the street to Starbucks or something, we had family watch him. But it's, like you said earlier in your intro, there's nothing worse than having a sick child, regardless of really what the disease or issue is, because as a parent, you feel so helpless. And I can't even tell you how many times I pleaded with God, like, just give me cancer because I cannot do this anymore. This kid has just been through so much. And every complication that you could imagine happened to him too. So it was extra worse. It wasn't like he kind of sailed through treatment. Like some kids sail through treatment. Nicholas did not sail through treatment. So it was, it put a lot of stress on my marriage. Luckily, we made it through. Lots of people don't. And it brought me to my knees on way too many occasions. I have some PTSD, now. It is what it is. You kind of get that after seeing something super traumatic, especially when it's your own child. But I've done a lot of self-healing and a lot of, I partake in a lot of modalities to kind of keep myself balanced and to keep that PTSD in check. But but to your point again, this is something like this changes you forever. I am no longer the person that I was, since May 8th, 2006. So,
yeah, and I know that time that you spent in the hospital was so difficult is what gave you the idea of forming One Mission, right? So, can you tell us a little bit about One Mission? What One Mission does?
Yeah, totally. So you're right. When we were in the hospital, this was 2006, so it was a long time ago, and there was really nothing. It was a hospital, and the focus of the hospital is to treat the child. It's not to create this magical experience for them. And they don't ever put that on their line item in their budgets. It's just they're not thinking about decorating hospital rooms. They're thinking about buying MRIs and medications, etc. So I had this legal pad of paper, and I don't know if it was my way of journaling or what, but I had a list of things that I thought sucked in the hospital. Like, there's, parking passes, there's not enough for them because my next door neighbors, they were poor and I was giving them my parking passes, and it was ridiculous that we had to pay for parking in the hospital. The food was terrible. Even if you could get the cafeteria to send you up food, which was against the rules because they only really were to feed the patient, it was just, how many times can you eat cafeteria food? How many times can you eat on pan? And every now and then we'd get this like cool catered dinner. It would be like in the resource room, and you plan your whole day around it. And then it wouldn't happen again. Everything was very inconsistent if we got any type of benefit, any toys, games, activities. It was like once or twice during that whole 188 days. So I kept writing all these things down. And then Nicholas took a turn for the worse. It was really quite bad. We had to we had to pack up and move up to the ICU because they didn't think he was going to make it through the night. So when I was having my 5th pity party for myself, crying, I was like, why did this happen? I can't even believe this happened to our family. Like, why? And my husband said, I know why. And I said, why? And he said, because God knows when we get out of here, we're going to make a difference. And I said, well, what are we going to do? And he's like, we're going to take your laundry list of crap that you want to change, and we're going to change it. And so it took me a while once we were home to get my feet on the ground. But, the things that we do, what One Mission does is we get the kids through the treatment and we let the doctors treat them, right? So we want the kids to be kids in the hospital if they're feeling up to it, which, most kids want to be kids. Like, they want to do arts and crafts. They want to play Wii games. They want to be able to have cool sheets and cool toys and games, and they want their siblings to come in, and they want to do activities with them. And so that's really what our focus is. It's, providing opportunities for kids to be kids. We have yoga, Reiki, meditation if the kids want, but definitely the moms and dads participate in that. We have 2 catered meals a week. So we went from nothing to 2 catered meals a week. We celebrate every holiday. So, you name it, from Christmas to Easter, everything, Hanukkah, you name the holidays, because there's every nationality there. We celebrate all of them. We put on a big party for them. And it's really just, we poll the families and we're like, hey, what are we missing? And they tell us. So they asked us for music therapy a couple of years ago. And because what was happening is the patients were requesting music therapy to come, and they had 2 music therapists for the entire hospital. So they would request it, and then an entire day or 2 days later, the music therapist would show up. And that's not helpful. So we fund a music therapist just for the oncology kids, so that when they want it, she's there. She's actually on the floor for 20 hours a week. We decorate their hospital rooms. We make it kind of feel like home. We put really cool lamps and real sheets and pillows and decorations and you name it. I've hung Christmas lights in kids' hospital rooms before. It's so cool. So there's a laundry list of things we do. If people are interested in listening, they can check us out at onemission.org. But, it's really it's the little things that add up to making the experience of living in the hospital, a way better experience.
In which hospital is this St. Jude's or
no?
Boston
The
Children's?
majority of our programs happen at Boston Children's. They happen at the Jimmy Fund Clinic. They happen at Hasbro, which is in Rhode Island. Those are our 3 main hospitals. Every now and then, we'll decorate a hospital room, say at Mass General or something like that. But we're basically New England-based. We have some programs in Texas and Philly, but they're not as big as Boston.
And I know that you've raised just a really, cool amount of money for this.
Yeah. So since we started in 2010, we've raised $7.5 million, which is small dollars in comparison to some really big charities. But I ran the charity out of my house for the first 4.5 years. So, we're very small staff. I don't pay myself. I have 3 paid staff. And, we run lean and we do the best that we can to raise the money and give as much of it, back to the programs that we can. So it's pretty cool. Our biggest fundraiser is the Buzz Off at Gillette Stadium, which happens every June. And that event raises $1 million. So that's our big driver.
I was there for the last one, volunteering myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. So tell us about the Buzz Off, because it's kind of a cool, fun thing to talk about. And Rob Gronkowski, right?
Yep, my buddy Rob. Yep. So I met Rob when he was in his rookie year, and he came to my first Buzz Off at Gillette, but was my second Buzz Off total. And he was super nice, and he came and just kind of hung out with everybody. He shaved some heads, and on the way out, he said, "Hey, by the way, I'll shave my head for you." And I was like, okay, great, awesome. And he's been with us ever since. He comes to the hospital with us. I've had him, write birthday cards for kids, make special videos for kids when they're in the hospital. He's a really all-around great kid. I love him. But anyway, so the Buzz Off is cool. I mean, it's obviously we get people to shave their hair off. The day is really something very unique. You really can't explain it in words. You kind of have to see it in person. But every emotion, from nervous to completely pumped and proud of themselves, you name it, you feel it that day. And it's electric. The energy in the space is completely electric. That's the best way to describe it, actually.
It totally was. I mean, when I volunteered last year, I was selling T-shirts, in the back of the room, so I could see everything that was going on. And I was amazed by how many people come and shave their heads. It's young people, old people, men, women, kids, grannies. It's and the people that that did it, you see the look on their face after they've shaved their head, really shaved. I mean, it's gone down to nothing, right?
Yeah.
And they look freaked out and so proud of themselves and so excited at the same time. It's very cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a very good description of it. I think that, every year there's about 1,000 people. Some years it's a little over, some years it's a little under. And, no matter how we slice and dice it, it's a third women, a third kids, and a third men. Mm-hmm. And when I came up with the idea for the Buzz Off, my board told me never in a million years was I going to get a woman to shave their head. And I said, I think you're going to be surprised. And honestly, of the women, there's about 350-ish women that shave every year. Like over 80% of them shave because they have healthy kids.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I used to call every single buzzee. That's what we call them, buzzies. I used to call every single one of them because I had time to, and I don't have time to call 1,000 people now. But when it was 600, 700-ish, 800 people, I used to call them. And I'd leave mostly messages, but the women who were shaving because I had healthy kids almost always called me back. And they were like, I'm so excited that you did this. I can't even imagine what it would feel like to have a sick child. I have to do this because I'm so blessed with healthy kids. So that's pretty cool, too.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and the patients from the hospital come, and they get to shave Rob's head. So it's an all-around great, it's a great way to not just raise money, but truly make a sacrifice, in honor of kids who don't have the choice to lose their hair. That's kind of where the whole premise of it came from,
Right. Yeah. And I know you're really personally yourself interested in sort of more of the holistic modalities, and you're trained in Reiki, you're trained in the emotion code. Tell me about how that sort of fits in with this stuff for you.
Yeah. That's actually, I feel like the most fun part of my job is, I don't know how it happened, but I became like the lady everybody calls, right? So I get people that I went to high school with, or people that I'm even really close with say, hey, my friend so-and-so's kid was diagnosed, or my best friend's kid was diagnosed. Like, will you go into the hospital to visit them? And I do. And so I'm with them from the moment that they hear the words, your child has cancer. And they are literally deer in the headlights. And I come in the first couple of weeks, and I say, hey, my name is Ashley. My kid had cancer. So they immediately relax. And, your friend so-and-so sent me here. And I'm here for you to talk to. And you're going to have a bunch of questions. And right now you must have a bunch of questions, like, how can I help you? And, they all kind of have the same issues at that moment. But I give them all like the same advice, which is it's telephone pole to telephone pole. Don't worry about, 6 months from now. Just take it day by day. Go to bed early because it makes the next day happen faster, and give your spouse a break, because it's very unusual for a husband and a wife to both experience the exact same trauma at the exact same time. But in this particular instance, that's exactly what's happening. So when you need your spouse the most, may indeed be a very bad day for them. And so that you guys have to give each other a little slack. So and that was the best advice that one of my nurses gave me after a huge blowout fight that my husband and I had in the hospital room. And so after that, we both kind of would check in with each other. I'd be like, I'm having a really bad day, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your day right now? And he'd be like, I'm a 7. I can't even talk to you right now. So it kind of became a joke, but people don't realize they need the permission to not be mad, right? Because you feel let down and hurt when you're so desperate because you're panicking when your spouse can't be there for you. So, and then I give them my phone number and I say, call me anytime. And, maybe 3 out of 10 families a month that I talk to actually call me after. And sometimes I maintain great friendships with them. And when they get home and they're done with treatment, inevitably at some point I get a text from them. Oh my God, what's going on? I thought I was going to be way happier. I can't adjust. I don't understand what anybody's talking about, because they missed out on so much, and they're still angry. And they have to go through those stages of grief, literally, even if their child is still alive, they have to mourn the loss of a healthy child. And they have to mourn the loss of their old life. And they have to reacclimate back to like this new life and their new outlook. And it's really, they have to do it on their own, because the hospital, there's no button to press. There's no nurse checking on you every 4 hours. So because I spent the last 10 years literally going to people like you, Lisa, and trying to heal myself, One Mission has started a new program called Heart to Heart, and it's really parents like me who have been there, done that, and we're here for those new families when they're done with treatment so that they can pick up the phone or read a blog post or come to one of our wellness events and learn how to take care of themselves and learn how to talk about how difficult it is to reacclimate back to life and just have somebody that they can lean on. Again, because like there's no social worker coming to check on you. There's no team of nurses checking in. You're home and you're done. So that's my new initiative. I think I'm most excited about that because I know how helpful, Reiki was for me, and, getting on somebody's table and having them put their hands on me and letting my body relax was a huge gift. So I got trained in all these different modalities so that I could pass on that gift to other families, that I meet through One Mission, and I plan on doing it free of charge for them because I know that it's also not a time in their life that they're spending money on themselves, so it'll all.
And how can they? Sadly, we're at the end of our time, but how can they reach you? How can they find more about this?
Yep, they can just go to onemission.org, and there's all the information on Heart to Heart is on there. And if they have any questions, they can email us info@onemission.org.
Thank you so much for being on our show today. It's such an inspiring, beautiful story, and I love what you're doing, and I love you too, honey. So
I love you too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being you.
All right.